You are listening to KC Sports Network, the #1 podcast network for today's Kansas City sports fans. With former players from your favorite teams, informed perspectives, and former insiders, this is the place for you. KC Sports Network is proudly presented by Emprise Bank, your partner in possible.
What is up, everybody? Welcome into KCSNU Kickoff, your home for college athletics and college football takes at KC Sports Network. I'm joined, as always, by Matt Lane. I'm Tucker Franklin. Maddie, how are you doing this week? How are you feeling?
Listen, we're about to get into college football conference play. Like, it's full on starting this week, next week. Everyone's in their own conference. This is where college football is where it kicks off. And, I know a lot of people don't become college football fans until a little bit later in the year. Well, this is the time where it starts. So I'm excited that you guys are here with us. We're excited to talk about a pretty good game slate this week, and especially for our local teams, Tuck.
Local slate is loaded. We got some good games going on in our watch schedule that we'll have going on later after we talk about that. But first, Maddie, let's get to your one big thing. I know that your one big thing is so big that this is going to be both of our big things because we're going to have a conversation about this. What do you have this week?
Okay. So this week, it's early, but this is, I think, about the time where we're legitimately a fourth of the way through the college football season. I know it doesn't seem like it, but the college football season isn't long. So we're 25% of the way done. We could start talking about who can possibly win the national title. And it's always less teams than people want to believe. Even though the playoff will expand in a couple of years, it'll still be less teams. But this is a good way to start talking about it. So I just want to go through here and ask you teams that we think can win the title and figure out how many there are. So I think we're going to rule out the obvious three: Georgia, Alabama, Ohio State. I think we can all agree that those three can win. What about Michigan? Do you think that Michigan could win the college football playoff and win the whole national title?
Maybe. I know that's not a very good answer. Maybe they could. I want to say that I'm hesitant of their quarterback, but last year, Georgia won with Stetson Bennett. But they had an elite defense. They had a lot of other things going for them there. But I don't think that Michigan necessarily has in that regard to back up. I can't think of his quarterback's name all of a sudden.
I believe JJ McCarthy has taken over.
Yes.
And that's the one thing that I'm giving them the benefit of the doubt right now is I think he looks to have some more to him. So if that keeps improving through the play, I think they elevate themselves up into the yes, because they do have the defense. I mean, they made the college football playoff last year. If McCarthy could come out there and compare, he just has to be Stetson Bennett level. I think they give a chance. What about Clemson?
No, I think DJU is too bad. I think that's going to be kind of the same place. I think that he's not good enough to take him to a title.
I would agree. And that offensive line is horrendous. So Clemson's defense can probably stack up against these offenses and maybe win any game or any two games, is Clemson's offense ever going to be able to put up enough points to beat Michigan and Ohio State and Alabama and Georgia? Like, they're going to have to win two of those. I don't see that offensive line not getting railroaded on any of those.
Right.
Oklahoma.
Oklahoma's a very interesting team, and we're going to talk about them here later because they got a big matchup with Kansas State this weekend. Man, that's a good question. I think they've played really well in the games that they have had. They've taken care of business in the ways that they've needed to take care of business, and that's what you really need to see from teams that are in that upper echelon. You know what? I think I'll say, yeah, I think that they can do it if they put it all together. I think that they could probably be a contender.
So I'm going to lean towards no right now because Dylan Gabriel, while a better quarterback than Stetson Bennett or what you've seen from JJ McCarthy. But my holdup is we've seen Oklahoma make it to the college football playoff with better quarterback play than Dylan Gabriel. And then they get completely blown out because they can't handle the physicality and the athleticism of some of these other schools. I agree that I think they're very good. And I think they'll be in competition to make the playoff. I don't know if I could see them, though, having just enough athleticism on offense, defense, and being physical enough to actually win. So right now we're sitting at 5 teams with Oklahoma. We'll call that 4.5. Here's where we start to get kind of tricky. Kentucky? No. Oklahoma State?
I don't trust Spencer Sanders enough, I don't think.
Arkansas, Tennessee, NC State. Any of these teams sounding great to you?
Nope, not really.
So the only one left. So we're at, I have four teams I think that can. They're the same 4 teams that won last year. You're wanting to put Oklahoma in the mix. And I think that's fine. Here's the last one. USC. Can USC in year one under Lincoln Riley, could they find a way to win the college football playoff?
I think I've been a little hesitant with USC just because, it's been one of those things where I kind of want to see it. And they did play well against Stanford. They've played well in their games that they've had. But I think this is going to be a big game for them this week. Obviously, we'll talk about that a little bit more. As of now, I'm a little hesitant, but I think that they could. Year one is ambitious, especially with in the Lincoln Riley. I guess I've talked myself out of it. I'll say I don't think this year is the year.
So I am going to put them on. They can. I don't think they will, but I think they can. It's for this one simple reason. I think that there is a path to where they go 2019 LSU on everybody, and they just score too many points. Their defense is worse than LSU's was. Don't get me wrong there, but that LSU defense wasn't that great. They were just bolstered by an awesome offense. I can see the path to where USC with Caleb Williams and then, Jordan Addison, Marco Williams, Taj Washington, all these wide receivers. Jerry Rice's kid is there now, and he's playing pretty well. Like, they have so many weapons, and they think they have just enough on offense that you could talk me into a path to where they maybe go up against a Michigan and are able to outscore them. And then maybe they get into a shootout with Ohio State or a shootout with Alabama, whose defense maybe doesn't seem to be quite as good as it has been in years past. Their offense maybe not as good as it's been in years past. I could just see it's a slim margin, but it's there. But I mean, either way, we're both sitting here at 5 teams that we think can win the college football playoff, and we haven't even got to October yet, Tucker.
Yeah, that just shows you how little parity there is, I guess, in college football. We talk about a lot. I think Andy Reid was at the podium, and he's talking about, hey, the NFL always strives for parity. They did a pretty good job with it this year. College football, not so much parity in this league anymore.
No, not at all. And I think it's always good to reset these expectations because you have a lot more fans that are not a fan of those 5 teams, 6 teams that we just mentioned, that should just go ahead and accept that they're probably not going to win a national title this year. But that doesn't mean the season's, not fun to watch, that there's not things to play for or win. So it's just, I think it's always good to set these expectations early, because unless you're from one of those schools that we just talked about, those 6 schools, I would not be counting on your team to win the national championship. And I would be downright floored if one of those teams we just mentioned, one of those 6 teams, Georgia, Alabama, Ohio State, Michigan, Oklahoma, or USC, doesn't win it. I'll be downright floored.
Yeah, I think it's a pretty clear pack at the moment. As we just went through, going through those top teams. I think every year we kind of look at this, and I know some area teams are talking about, hey, maybe we could sneak into the college football playoff, and then you talk about getting into the college football playoff, then you got to play in a pretty damn good team. Let's be honest. Georgia, Alabama, those are some good teams. Ohio State, really good team. And those are the clear top 3, I think. Wherever you want to put them is probably up to personal discretion. I personally think Georgia's the best. You watch them play, and it's just like, this team is so much better than any other team that they play. That South Carolina game, they were just doing fun stuff with their tight ends and just giving tight ends end arounds to score touchdowns. Like, who does that? And they can do that because they're Georgia, and they've got dudes. They've got dudes everywhere on that team besides at quarterback. Anyway.
Dudes have dudes. Oh, okay, listen. Stetson Bennett is on his way to be in the Heisman conversation.
He's been better this year. He's
been great. He's been great. I don't want to sell it short. I don't think he's an NFL player at all. I don't even think he's a backup quarterback in the NFL. But he has been great this year for them so far. So, shout out to Stetson Bennett and his chain of used cars that he is about to sell when he's done playing in Georgia.
Yeah, we've had several conversations about Stetson Bennett. But it makes sense why he started though over JT Daniels when you look at it now. But Matt, are you ready to get to these the slate of local games this week?
Let's get to it. Let's decide the Big 12 winner right now on September 24th.
That's what college football is all about, right? Making sweeping judgments after 3 weeks of play and even 4 weeks. Determining this is what happens in college football. Something happens in a week of college football, and then it's just like, yep, this is gonna happen forever. Like Kansas State blew out Missouri. Like, yep, this team is going to the college football playoff. Next week they lose to Tulane. So it's just like, can we not just make absolute sweeping judgments after one game? No, we can't. We simply cannot.
Oh yeah, I mean, and that's the way to go. You're right. This is any sport, but college football, I think, is specifically the worst because you do have to come up with a semi-subjective ranking because that's what the AP poll and the coaches poll is
Right.
each week. So like you were immediately asked to rank the teams based on what you think about them. And these power rankings do sort the end of season bowl game. So it's like, it
Mhm.
would be like if in an NFL, the power rankings actually told you what seed you're going to be rather than your record. That seems to just get more weight for college ball. So it makes the sweeping judgments, go a lot bigger. But I mean, we got to get into this big game
Yeah.
in Norman, Oklahoma.
Yep, 7 p.m. kickoff time in Norman, Oklahoma. As Kansas State travels down to Oklahoma, who they've had really good success against or not this season, because they haven't played yet. In the past few years, in the climate era, really, they've had good success against Oklahoma. That will be on Fox. They get that Fox evening kickoff. Listen, we're gonna be in Manhattan, Kansas. So if you're within earshot of Manhattan, Kansas, driving distance of Tanner's and Aggieville, we'll be there. We're doing a live show. John Kurtz, Cole Manbeck will be in person. We got a couple basketball players, Marquise Noel being one of them, coming down for the pregame show. We'll be talking the Wildcats pre and post game show here on KCSNU as well. So you can also get the reminders for those live shows. I'll have links up for that, and so you can get the reminders. But Maddie, let's talk about the game. What are your first impressions of this matchup?
Okay, so we were wrong last week. Oh, I want to start with this. This is a weird time to put this in there, but our picks last week, we
Oh,
didn't
yes.
have a great. We did not have a great run. We both went 3-3 last week, and one of our biggest losses was we both took Nebraska versus Oklahoma, giving Nebraska, hey, one last ditch effort to make things happen. Oklahoma blew the brakes off them, and it wasn't a game after the third series for each team.
Right.
So Oklahoma looked good last week. They did a lot of what they wanted to do. I actually think that you get a little bit worried when Oklahoma was bringing in Brent Venables to come back to be your head coach, defensive-minded head coach who's been around the league, even coming from Dabo Swinney. You're wondering if they're going to play a little safe, if they are going to be this ball control team. You don't know what his offense is going to look like. Well, Jeff Lebby comes in. He's given the entire offensive keys to this team, and they could bring in Dylan Gabriel, and you were seeing them run Jeff Lebby's offense, and that's a very good offense. And you can tell Venables does not have his fingers in there in terms of slowing it down to make it easier for the Oklahoma defense. They're letting the offense just be this spread college-like offense, and it's fun to see. They're clicking on all cylinders. Like, I think this Oklahoma team right now is set up for immediately and the future to be a lot better than I thought during this transition, because I thought there was going to be some learning curve. But as long as Lebby's there, as long as Brent Venables keeps letting him control the offensive side of the ball, it's a dangerous team.
I think that's something good coaches do, is that they recognize their downsides. Maybe not necessarily they don't want to control the whole team. They know that maybe they're not very good on the offensive side of the ball, so they get an offensive coach to handle the offensive side of the ball. I think that's what good coaches do. And Dylan Gabriel was big. I think a big gift for them, obviously a redshirt junior transfer. I believe might have another year left with the red shirt and the COVID year. He might have 2 left with the COVID year.
He might have 8. I don't know how they're
Yeah.
handling that anymore, to be honest.
Yeah, it's they've looked good on the offensive side of the ball. Frankly, I always think that I think last year specifically, OU only played close games. And OU only played in close games. So when I was picking that Nebraska game, I was like, hey, this seems like a game that OU will play very close. This is a different OU team than last year, obviously, because they beat the brakes off Nebraska. Now, Nebraska is not good. They're a bad program. That program's in a bad spot. I don't even know if they've got really any dudes besides Casey Thompson on that team. And they've got dudes on both sides of the ball. Really, you talk about their middle linebacker David Yu. We tried to pronounce his name before the program. Wasn't going to happen. David Yu is what we're going with. They got Jalen Redmond, another redshirt junior on that defensive tackle position. Senior transfer Jeffrey Johnson. They had a transfer come in on the defensive side of the ball too. They've got some guys up there. They've got some big dudes. I think it's going to be hard for K-State to handle them. I'll be honest. They've struggled offensively. They've had some injuries on their offensive line, but I find it hard for Adrian Martinez to find any gaps of air to breathe in this Oklahoma defense.
That's the trick, right? K-State, if they're forced to play keep up with Oklahoma, it's not going to work. This game has to be a low scoring slugfest. And the problem is, under Lincoln Riley, and even before, you could force Oklahoma into that because they didn't necessarily want to hit you. They didn't necessarily want to be physical. And I don't know if the players have turned over enough in one year to say, oh no, now they're a physical team. But Brent Venables also isn't going to let the guys go out there and be afraid of that. And I think you've kind of seen that early on that they haven't been challenged. So like, I'm not trying to say that there's no chance, but Venables is a very good defensive mind. You can go look at these Clemson teams or back to Oklahoma when he was there. Like this team he's very good at getting these guys ready, making sure they're ready for their run fits, making sure they're ready for what the offense is going to do. Adrian Martinez has been so one-dimensional so far that I think Brent Venables might feast on him. So, like, I think it's going to be entirely up to K-State's defense, which has been very good this year. Like, it's been a very good defense. But, like, I think all the pressure is on that defense to not let Oklahoma get over 20 points, until, like, the very end of the game. I think if they get over 20 before half, especially, but even in the third quarter, I think it's just going to look really difficult for this K-State offense to start putting up points.
Yeah, I totally agree. And Maddie, who's kind of your prospects to watch in this matchup? There's a lot of good got a lot of good guys on both sides of this ball.
There is. And so along with that, we're talking about K-State's defense having to step up here. We're going to go with Julius Brents, the very large cornerback, 6'4", a little over 200 pounds. He looks like a very well-built gazelle out there. He's a pretty good athlete, big dude, very good in run support. This week though, across from him, Marvin Mims, a little bit undersized wide receiver for Oklahoma, but he doesn't always play it. 5'11", if I'm maybe being a little generous, 180-ish pounds, but good speed, good route runner. When Oklahoma needs to make things happen over the past few seasons, he's kind of been the guy that has helped make it happen. I really like Marvin Mims. I think he's better than he gets credit for. And I think some people are put off by the size. This isn't a Hollywood Brown sized guy. He's big enough that I don't have any concerns with him moving to the NFL like I did with Hollywood Brown. So I'm interested to see if Brents can stop Mims right here. And when Oklahoma needs plays, is Mims still the go-to guy like it had been in years past? So I think I don't want to say this singular matchup determines who wins, but if Mims has a quiet day, that bodes really well for K-State. If he doesn't, I don't trust Adrian Martinez to be able to keep up with him. So Julius Brents, pressure's on.
Yeah, I agree. Pick versus the spread here, Maddie. OU at 12.5. We've really boosted up this program here, Maddie, because I have the teams versus the spread. So Oklahoma is 2-1. Kansas State, I believe, is also 2-1. Let me double check that real quick. Kansas State is 2-1. Both teams are 2-1 against the spread. What do you think here, Maddie?
God, this is a tricky one. 12.5 is a lot of points, right? And especially when we're talking about K-State's path to win or even be competitive in this game is to keep it close. If they're keeping it close, you're clearly taking them in the points. I don't like what I saw against Tulane. I think it was way too one-dimensional. I understand it could be they were looking ahead. They got trap game before Oklahoma. The big Oklahoma game comes to town. Maybe I'm being too reactionary to what I just saw, especially because I've leaned on K-State being a actually good team all year. I just think this is a bad matchup. Give me Oklahoma. I'll lay the 12.5. I'm going to take Oklahoma to cover. Don't feel great about it. I'm doing it.
I don't feel great about either one of these, to be honest with you, because if you say plus 12.5, you're expecting Adrian Martinez to score at least 12.5 points. So that's going to be tough. I don't like putting trust in Adrian Martinez, as you can tell, obviously. I don't like that. And if they have to rely on Adrian Martinez, I don't think this game is going to go the way that Kansas State fans want it to. I'm going to go, it's at home for Oklahoma. 12 is such a big number, especially in the first conference game of the year. I'm going to bet with my head, not my heart here, Maddie. I'm going to go with Kansas State plus the 12.5, just based solely on it's a conference game. Weird stuff happens.
Yep.
But I don't love that. Both of us don't love our picks.
Here's some more numbers too. Chris Kleiman, since he's been there, has never lost by 12.5 to Oklahoma. He's actually beat them 2 out of 3 years, including the last time they played in Norman. So that bodes well for K-State, but I also think that means Oklahoma helps them get up for this game, be a little bit more riled up, especially having K-State come back. Venables will be in this one too. K-State guy, you don't ever want to lose to a previous job that you've had. So it should be fun. I could see it going either way, but I'm glad we're on opposite sides of this. Now we get some drama.
Yes, we do get some drama in our picks. Last week, we had all the same picks besides our wild card picks.
So bad for us.
And it was not good. All right, let's go to the next game. Quite possibly the biggest matchup of the weekend, with two basketball schools playing football. Duke heads to Kansas, to Lawrence, Kansas, for an 11 a.m. kickoff time on FS1. Giving them the big network, the FS1, for this primetime matchup of Duke versus Kansas. The booth is sold out. Shout out to Braden Turner from the Ain't No Seats podcast. He was buying tickets and giving them away in bunches of hundreds. So the booth will be packed. I believe Kent Swanson will be there. Lots of fanfare around this game. What do you think about this matchup, Maddie?
Okay, first of all, Jayhawks fans, guys, I was riding for you guys to get game day too. I get it. I get the desire. And then I saw this, who they chose, and I saw the schedule, and I was like, nah, you guys had no chance. Duke, Kansas had zero chance to beat out College game day to one of the biggest rivalries in all of college football of two top 25 ranked teams. Win this game. Hope Iowa State beats Baylor as well. And then you guys get College game day next week for an actual Big 12 matchup between two undefeated teams. That's your best bet. Zero chance they were ever going to go to a basketball team versus basketball team playing football over, like I said, one of the best rivalries in all of college football. I am sorry, guys. They made the right choice. That being said, I don't see much of an area in which I think Duke has any advantage in this game. I think we're dealing with similar level athletes, two programs that are clearly on the upswing, teams that have made good hires at head coach. I believe it's Mike Elko has come in at Duke. He's got that defense playing good. But the thing is, Duke hasn't played anybody. I don't think Kansas' schedule has been that great. Houston, clearly not as good as we thought, given not just the Kansas loss, but just how their whole season has gone. They're not as good as like their 18th ranking to start the year said they were, but Kansas is far more proven. And at the end of the day, Kansas has the better quarterback. When I deal with teams, I've said everything. When you deal with teams that are the same level athletes, give me the better quarterback. That's Jalen Daniels pretty easily. So I feel like Kansas should have this one in the bag.
I agree. You look at Duke's schedule, they've played Temple, not the same Temple in years past, Northwestern, and North Carolina A&T. Those aren't West Virginia or Houston.
Correct.
And Tennessee Tech isn't very good, but those aren't the same level of competition that Kansas has faced. Maddie, you and I kind of had this conversation too. Is it like if they beat Houston, we were talking about it, they beat Houston, it's just like, man, who can't they beat at this point? Essentially, is because Houston was a pretty good team coming into it. Maybe the Houston's a little bit worse than we anticipated. I'm not totally Houston as frauds yet, as I was on Pitt at the very beginning of this podcast. I still think they're frauds, but I think that this game won't necessarily be close. Maddie, who are you keeping your eyes on for this game?
Yeah, so here's the thing about Kansas. This is good for Kansas fans. There's not a ton of senior or even draft eligible guys this year. It's a lot of underclassmen or at least guys with eligibility left. So this team, however good they are this year, should only be this good or better going forward. So that being said, I watching Jeremy, I believe is how it is pronounced, Robinson, defensive end for Kansas. Now, he had a sack last week, and I immediately went and looked up who he was. I asked a couple of Jayhawks fans who he was because, like, I hadn't seen him flash as much as this game, but just the way he came around the corner, he showed a good little hand swipe and then some bend, changed levels really well. Like, there was the athletic traits you look for in a pass rusher. 6'3", 255 pounds. He clearly has the ability to rush the passer. He can bend the corners. Like, he's just a guy worth keeping your eyes on. Maybe he is a guy that I believe he was only a redshirt junior or a true junior right now. It's like he can come back, but he's just a guy to keep your eye on. So that's Jeremy Robinson, Robinson, and he's going to go up against Graham Barton, offensive tackle out of Duke. Looking at a day 3 pick here, but a longtime starter at Duke. You know, he's made his way around there. He's been in the lineup for a long time. Strong guy, very good technique with his hands. It should be a fun matchup, but I think Robinson has the athleticism to really stress him. And if that happens, I just think that bodes very well for Robinson's potential draft future, whether it's this year or next year.
This line is at -7 for the Kansas Jayhawks. I kind of anticipated it to move a little bit in Kansas's favor. It hasn't moved at all this week. Both teams, when it comes to against the spread, Kansas is 3-0, Duke is 2-1 against the spread. As we mentioned, Duke necessarily hasn't played the stiffest of competitions. I believe in all of the games except the Tennessee Tech game, Kansas was dogs. They were double-digit dogs.
Yeah.
against West Virginia, and they might have been double-digit dogs against Houston. I can't remember what that line was last week. If they weren't double-digit, they were close to it. So they're favored in this matchup -7 points. I think I'm going to take Kansas minus the 7. I think it's kind of a no-brainer pick right here.
I'm hammering Kansas. Yeah,
Yeah.
I don't think Duke's shown enough. Seven's just one score. I think at worst you're looking at a push at the worst end. I think it would be a little bit of a letdown if Kansas does not beat this Duke team by more than 7. And I'm not saying if they win by less than that to be disappointed. I just think it would be a letdown given all the hype going into it. And I don't think Duke's that good. I think Duke's a couple years away from being even solid, whereas I think Kansas might be right there on the doorstep.
I think I agree with you, Maddie, there. So let's get into this last one.
Oh boy,
I'm gonna get sad here.
Missouri
versus Auburn. Hey, I don't know if you saw the top 15 or top 25 worst programs in college football got released by Big Game Boomer. This is a top 15 matchup on their list. Missouri and Auburn. This is an 11 a.m. kickoff in Auburn, Alabama. This got the ESPN game for this one. I know that's a real sickos move for ESPN to schedule this one. Maddie, I want to get your thoughts on it before I talk about this game.
My thoughts. Sorry, Missouri faithful. Skip this one. Nobody should watch this game. I don't mean like sorry to be Missouri fans. Missouri fans should watch because this might be your best chance at a win until you play Vandy. And I don't know if I'm not leaning towards Vandy as of right now. Like this is a chance for a win. So that's good if you're a fan of Missouri. The thing is, Auburn stinks. Auburn's bad. They got pushed around by Penn State, and Penn State, I think, is a quality team, but they're not known for their physicality under James Franklin. They're an athletic team. They have freak athletes. Yeah, they have some guys that are freakishly strong, but they're not a power team. And Auburn, who is a power team, got pushed around. Their defensive line wasn't able to do anything. TJ Finley is one of the worst starting quarterbacks in all of college football right now. His only offense is running around and hoping a broken play turns into something. So, you hope this is one. You hope this is one where Missouri's recruiting and that athleticism they've recruited shows up. They can compete with the athleticism of Auburn and that they are a better coach team with a better quarterback somehow and that they win this game.
Well, TJ Finley's not playing in this game.
I have missed this.
Yes, he's suffering an injury, which might not bode well for Missouri. If he's not playing in this game.
Is Calzada coming in? Who's coming in?
I can't remember who their backup quarterback is, but he played in the game against Penn State.
Robbie Ashford. Okay, so they're not even going with Calzada. Okay, if this was Calzada, I would have. Okay, I'm spoiling it. I would have taken Auburn if they switched to Calzada just because I know what he is. I know nothing about Robbie Ashford here, so we'll have to see when I get to my picks. But okay, you can continue. Sorry, I did not know TJ Finley was out. This is scary hours now for Missouri.
Yeah, Missouri hasn't fared very well in the past against backup quarterbacks. They're kind of scarred when it comes to that. But I think, I don't know. That's a kid you don't know. And I guess Eli Drinkwitz said earlier this week that they were already preparing for both quarterbacks, which I think is fair to say. Once you saw their performances from the first couple of weeks, you start to prepare for both of those guys. Yeah, and Maddie, as you mentioned, I think this is probably the most winnable SEC game for Missouri outside of Vanderbilt. And it might be more than Vandy. It might be more than Vandy, honestly. So when you look at this game, Missouri's offensive line has to be better. It did not look very good against Abilene Christian and FCS school. And you cannot imagine how it's going to fare against an Auburn defensive line that has some dudes. They've got some dogs up there. And that worries me a little bit. What I think the key to this game is going to be Brady Cook on quick passes, screens, getting the ball into Luther Burden's hands, getting it into Dom Lovett's hands, letting Nate Pete get out and run, letting the athletes be athletes, and just kind of gotta hope that they can out athlete Auburn's athletes at this point. This is the best opportunity for Mizzou in quite some time to get a win over Auburn. Let's be honest here. Auburn stinks. Missouri stinks. This football game is not going to be the best football you will watch all weekend. I can promise you that. It might be worse than the Colts performance against the Chiefs this weekend. So that's kind of what I'm looking for is an improved offense, maybe a little bit quicker of a pace for Brady Cook so he can get the ball out to the athlete's hands. I think the less time the ball is in Brady Cook's hands, the better. Also, if you're running a lot of quick passes, slants, outs, quick screens, bubbles, stuff like that. The offensive line is not having to block all that long, and it kind of negates that pass rush a little bit. So I think that could be kind of a key, and the defense just has to kind of step up and get after the quarterback, force some turnovers, and not turn the ball over. That's going to be a really big key for Mizzou. So, Maddie, who you got your eyes on this game?
So I think this game's gross. I don't know if there's any
Yep.
particular matchup that is going to like matter in the grand scheme of things. It's whichever quarterback would Robbie Ashford's ability to run and maybe throw the ball versus Brady Cook's ability to not throw the ball to Auburn is like deciding who's going to win this game, I guess. Not fun. So I'm just watching fun prospects. Javon Foster, off at left tackle versus Derek Hall, edge for Auburn.
Yeah.
I think Derek Hall isn't probably my favorite of the Auburn defensive linemen, but he's been the most effective. He's the best edge rusher. He's been the most efficient for them. Javon Foster, back against K-State, I thought had a really good game against Felix, actually. I thought he played really well against Felix. Now, Missouri was getting blown out, and it wasn't like it was a lot of one-on-one matchups, but I thought he played well in that game. So Foster versus Derek Hall, it'll be fun. It'll just be fun to watch two guys that are to get drafted into the NFL within the next 2 years to go head-to-head in this game. Like, that will be far more exciting than attempting to watch the ball and wherever it will or will not be going.
I completely agree. You talk about these two teams against the spread. Auburn is 0-3 this year. Missouri is 1-2. So two teams that don't know how to cover. The line is at -7 in favor of the Auburn Tigers at home. Maddie, I'm going to give my pick first. I'm going to take Missouri in the points. That might seem like blind homerism, okay? But I think that this is going to be like a 16-10 game, and the winner is whoever has the better kicker. And Missouri has a pretty decent kicker. So I think putting your trust in a college kicker, not my favorite, but if it's Harrison Mevis, I'm okay with that. I'm going to take Missouri in the points just based on they have the better kicker.
I'm taking the Tigers. Tigers to win. Tigers. I'm going to take Missouri too. I'm going with Missouri here. I think 7's too much in how gross this game is. And this game's too gross to think anyone's going to win by more than a touchdown. Now, it probably will happen. Would I be surprised if either team wins by like 20? Not necessarily, because I could see either team laying a complete stinker, but I'm putting my finger on which one. Brian Harson's coaching for his job, and Drink I'm not as tuned into Missouri as Tucker is. I feel like he might be coaching to keep his name off the hot seat. He's not about to be fired, but like I think if a bad loss here and then going winless in the SEC this year puts him firmly in the hot seat. So like, I think he might be coaching to keep his name off of the hot seat. Harson's coaching for his job. I think it'll be close. Neither team will want to be risky. They'll both want to rely on their defense versus bad offenses and to see what happens. So yeah, give me Tigers in the points.
It's going to be ugly scoring. It's going to be, like I said, a 6-3 game. It could be something like that. It could be something dumb where it's just all field goals because both of these offenses stink.
Or 33-30, but like the grossest 33-30 points you've ever seen. Like 2 defensive touchdowns, a muffed punt, like stuff like that. Like it's going to be close and it's going to be ugly. It's just you don't even know which way it's going to go. That's ugly.
Yeah, that's so true. I wouldn't be surprised if Brian Harsin, if they do lose to Missouri, does not have a job on Monday morning. That Missouri fans shouldn't take pride in that because that's Auburn saying you lost at this school or fire you. I know sometimes Missouri fans take pride in that, but let's not do that. Maddie taking Mizzou in the points. I got absolutely grilled on Twitter for wanting to take the money line in this game. I don't know if you saw that, Maddie, for wanting to defend my favorite college football team. I said,
I believe I started that.
You did start that, actually. You did see this. Let's get into the KCSNU watch schedule. There's a ton of games going on, but we're going to tell you the games that we're going to have on the big TVs and give you a little bit later some of the little TV games that you should be watching. Let's first get to the one that's going to be kicking off at 11 a.m. Central Time. That's Clemson and Wake Forest. This game is really interesting, and I was kind of surprised that I'm sure Game Day did look at coming to this game because Wake Forest is good. Clemson is good. Obviously, you talked about earlier where they're going is the best place for them to be. This is at home for Wake Forest. This is an ABC game at 11 a.m. Maddie, what do you think about this game?
So as far as Game Day goes, I think they try to capitalize on hype, and there's no hype for this game right now because Clemson is gross good. They're not fun to watch, but they're still really good. Wake Forest struggled with, I believe it was Liberty last week. It's like there's just no hype here. So like it makes sense to not come here. But yeah, it's a good game in the ACC. Is Wake Forest going to be able to compete to go back or compete at the top of the ACC this year, or is it essentially just Clemson versus whoever the next challenger is? Florida, Florida State, NC State, whoever it's going to be. Is Wake one of those teams or not? The problem with this game, Clemson's defensive line, excellent, big, strong, freakishly fast. Wake Forest offensive line, they kind of piece it together. That's why they run this long mesh stuff where they walk towards the line of scrimmage. Everyone gets confused on what's happening. That doesn't work when your offensive line can't give you a second to walk to the line with the long mesh. So if you go back and look through this game, and it's slightly jumping ahead to the picks, but do you know the last time that Wake Forest lost to Clemson, or didn't lose to Clemson by like less than 7? Like, when was the last time Clemson didn't beat Wake Forest by more than 7 points? 2011.
Wow.
Just this style of offense, and Wake's better now than they've been. It's a quality, they're a quality team. They're a good team, especially on offense, but their offensive scheme does not match up well against Clemson. Clemson's defensive line is dominant. I think that there's a really bad matchup for Wake Forest, despite that I like the direction their team has gone. Do you see anything different here with this one?
Not really. I do like the Sam Hartman, their quarterback,
Yeah.
but like it can only go so far with a good
And A.T.
quarterback,
Perry,
right?
good wide receiver.
Yeah.
They even have the ability to put up points. It's just I don't know if they can against Clemson.
Yeah, and I think that's going to be the big thing. I know he had dealt with some injuries. I was trying to look on Twitter to see if he plans on playing. I believe he does. So I think he's going to be playing in this game. The spread is very interesting, which we'll get to later, Maddie. I want you to talk about kind of some of the guys that you got your eye on first.
So we mentioned A.T. Perry. He's a wide receiver for Wake. I just think he's a fun guy to keep your eye on because if their offense works, it'll be funneled through Sam Hartman dealing the ball around, but also going to Perry. Yeah. But the matchup, I mentioned it. Clemson's defensive line. I'm coming around a lot on Brian Brzee. I think he's really good. I think he's back. I know he missed last week with a family issue. I think he's back. But even if he's not, Miles Murphy, defensive end, against whatever tackle. Devontae Gordon I think he played guard 2 years ago. He's kicking out the tackle. He's improving for Wake Forest there. So, they have a quality tackle that's draft eligible that'll probably get drafted, but can he hold up against a potential first round pick in Miles Murphy when they do put Brzee on the outside, which Clemson will do from time to time? How does he deal with that power? How does he deal with that length? Can he give them anything? Because if he shows well, then, maybe you start circling Devontae Gordon's name and say, we look at this guy for day 2 range instead of later on day 3. And for Clemson's guys, you need that kind of statement game to cement yourself in the top 20. This could be one for either one of those guys, Brzee or Miles Murphy. It's a good offense. They'll be on TVs everywhere. Like, it's a good one to watch for either side of this.
Yeah. Clemson's got a lot of older guys on the team, a lot of seniors, a lot of redshirt seniors, especially a lot of juniors as well. When I look at the roster, that's what really stands out to me. When you talk about the spread, Wake Forest 2-1 against the spread this season. Clemson, if I could spell it right when I'm searching it, is 1-2 against the spread, and that spread is set at Clemson -7. Got some home dogs. This is a home dog alert. You got Wake Forest as the home dogs. Listen, I love a good home dog. I love a home dog. I'm going to take them. I'm taking Forest in the points.
Woo! Look at you go. We're fighting now. Give me Clemson. I don't trust DJU. I don't trust that offensive line. I just don't know if Wake is the team to threaten those things. I think would have to win in a shootout, and I just don't know how Wake puts up enough points against Clemson's defensive line. I'll take Clemson laying the points, but I'm glad we're fighting twice now. Like, I can now make up ground. You're one game up on me on the year. I can make up ground this week.
It's true.
Or lose it.
This is another game we could be a little different in. Afternoon, the 3:30 time slot. This is where game day will be at. Florida versus Tennessee. This is at Rocky Top in Knoxville, Tennessee, on CBS. So that is SEC likes to do this where they put their primetime game at 2:30 on CBS. They do this a lot.
Great choice.
It is phenomenal. What do you like about this game, Maddie?
Well, the time. This is great. This is the best especially for Eastern or even Central, but especially like Eastern, which is a lot of SEC stuff. This is where you get the best. You get a tailgate just long enough that you're not completely hammered and you are not too dangerous, but then you get to go into the game, and then at the end, you can either go out and celebrate your win or wind down at home with a loss. Like, this is the best time, hands down, for a game. Now, that said, let's get to the game. Whew, Florida started out like gangbusters with Utah, and they have looked like hot buns since. That offense is Anthony Richardson. struggling. He's getting a good matchup against a Tennessee defense that isn't bad, but it's not necessarily good. And they have it there. It's difficult for them to play with that Tennessee offense. It's running like 900 plays a minute. That's difficult to play defense for. But, it's a good matchup for the Gators. I imagine they hold the ball. They maybe try to use Richardson's legs if he's fully healthy. It seems to be unclear if he is or isn't. Try to run the ball a little bit more. You get ETN's younger brothers there. They have a good running back room. Florida tries to control the ball. Just can they stop that Hendon Hooker-led Tennessee Volunteers passing attack? I don't know. I like Tennessee. Tennessee's a fun team that I think is good.
I think Tennessee's good. Now, I know we started off the top of this program by saying we don't think they can win the national championship, which
no chance.
Right, no chance they do. I think this team's pretty good, though. I think that this is a good SEC team. Hendon Hooker's been looking the part. They've got some dudes on both sides of the ball. This is this feels like 98 is what a lot of people are saying. I made that up. I don't know if people are saying that or not. But this is a good matchup. I don't love Florida. I'll be honest. I think Florida is one of the most hot or cold teams that there are. I was surprised they beat Utah. I thought Utah was going to win that game, and maybe Utah wasn't as good as we think that they are. And Florida almost loses to South Florida if it wasn't for a bad snap. If there's not a bad snap, they lose that game. I'm convinced. So it's been weird for Florida so far. Hasn't really been all that weird for Tennessee. They've kind of taken care of business. You've seen some consistency, but again, I need to look at Tennessee's schedule. I don't really think that they've played anyone. I mean, they've played Ball State, Pitt, Akron. Pitt was a tough game. That was an overtime game that they took care of business in. They kind of did a little backdoor cover on that one. I like Tennessee. I like Tennessee a lot in this matchup.
Ooh, okay, so we're going to start with this. I'm going to get the matchup, then we'll get to the picks. Darnell Wright, actually, I think recently in a mock draft, I believe Pro Football Network was mock draft to the Chiefs in the first round. So, there you go. Fun little connection. Darnell Wright, left tackle for Tennessee. I told Tucker before we started this, and, I'll have some stuff out about it here soon. He was catching more bodies last year, just in terms of pancakes and putting guys on the ground, than I think Trey Smith was back when he was at Tennessee. And if anybody remembers Trey Smith at Tennessee, it was a lot. So, here's a powerhouse of a left tackle. I think it's a good system for him because they don't ask him to do true pass sets a ton. So for a 335, 340-pound tackle, he's not being asked to drop super deep and pass protect for a long time because the ball's out quick, a lot of quick drops. Perfect for him. Strong guy. He loves to trap, so he loves to catch a defensive end's arms and pull them down, and he will put you on your face and then flop on you over and over again if you let him. He'll pancake guys on combo blocks. I loved watching him play. I think he could very well find himself in the first round come April. Across from him, Brenton Cox Jr., defensive end for Florida. Everybody remembers him kind of not necessarily dominating, but having a really good game against Kentucky in prime time, setting up Florida's defense to get a lot of other plays that he wasn't necessarily getting credited for the stats for. Just good veteran pass rusher. He's been 4 years, I think, at Florida now. He came from Georgia beforehand. So that's a good matchup between a defensive end that's looking like a top 100 pick, an offensive tackle trying to get into round one. But now we got to pick it. 10.5 points, Tucker. That's a big number for a rivalry game.
It is a very big number. Tennessee 3-0 against the spread. Florida, I believe, is that's South Florida 1-2 against the spread. So a team that hasn't been played very well against the spread, team that has 10.5, as you mentioned, big number. As you were talking, I was thinking about man, I really do like Tennessee, but do I like them at 10.5? I don't know. I don't know if I do. I need to think about it a little bit more. Do you have your pick?
I'm right with the Volunteers, baby. I think they're good. I think it's a good team. I think these rivalry games are crazy. Now, I don't even say this one's gross. This is just crazy. So wild things are going to happen. I think Tennessee's clearly the better team, though. I love Anthony Richardson. I think if after the Utah game he came out and he just said, nope, I'm going to the draft, he would have been in contention for a top 5 pick. He has not played well the last 2 weeks. He might rebound a little bit here, but Hendon Hooker, as far as college football goes, is the better quarterback. That offense is better. I think Tennessee jumps out to an early lead because that's what they like to do. Florida is forced to trust Richardson as a drop back passer more frequently. Can't keep up. Give me Tennessee and the Volunteers getting one in Knoxville for the first time since 2016 against one of their biggest rivals.
I like it.
Right.
Makes me hesitate because Pitt did take them to overtime, and I think Pitt's a bad football team, obviously. They're probably using this as bulletin board material, I'm sure. Um, I, I'm gonna go Tennessee minus the 10.5 too, just because of the recent trend, as you mentioned, of Anthony Richardson. I think I kept calling him Henderson on another podcast. Anthony Richardson. I like the Hendon Hooker. Take the better quarterback. Take the better coach. I'll take Tennessee minus the 10.5 here.
All right.
Let's move on to that primetime game we got here, Maddie. 6:30 Wisconsin versus Ohio State. Ohio State rocking the blackouts for this one. This is in Columbus. That'll be on ABC. What are your thoughts?
So yeah, Ohio State comes out in the blackout uniforms, and I immediately feel a little bit better about them. This game, is it going to go just like Notre Dame, Ohio State? I guess is like the first question. Like, is that what it's going to be? Is Ohio State going to struggle against Jim Leonard's very good defense? Is Leonard going to be scheming things up to slow down CJ Stroud, turn this game into a run fest in which Ohio State eventually figures out that they can just out athlete Wisconsin? That is a possibility. I don't know if that's going to happen, but it's definitely possible. So I don't know what to think of this game yet. This is a game that feels like it's always played as the Big Ten championship game, and everyone tries to build it up like it's a real thing. And then Ohio State just looks better. Sometimes it's close, but they just clearly look like the better team. So are we getting that? Are we going to get an Ohio State blowout? I mean, after all, this Wisconsin team did lose to Washington State. I don't know what to make of this game yet. Like I'm a little all over the place, and I could see it being close, like that Notre Dame Ohio State game. Or I could see Ohio State just coming out and blasting them. So where are you at? Where are you at with this? Because I just don't know how to put my finger on this game yet. It does not feel like Wisconsin, Ohio State play in September.
So, yeah, right. I think I give Ohio State a pass for the Notre Dame game because it was week 1, and trying to figure stuff out. Ohio State's look pretty damn good these last few weeks. I was just looking it up. Ohio State's actually only 1-2 against the spread, which kind of surprised me. I know they didn't hit that first week because of they didn't play very well. The spread was 16.5 points or something like that week 1, and they did not beat Notre Dame by 16.5 points. I like Ohio State and the talent that they have. I personally don't necessarily think this game is going to be close. Just because you're seeing Ohio State start to hit their stride, I think. And this is one of those games where I think they'll assert their dominance and be like, yep, we're still Ohio State. We're still good. Don't worry about us. I feel like it's going to be one of those type of games for them.
Yeah, and I can absolutely see the path to that. They've done it before. I just think it's such a weird time of the year for me to think that Ohio State has got everything figured out. I think Jim Leonard's going to come out and do a lot of the same stuff that Notre Dame did. And I wonder, when you are dealing with this step up in competition from what the Buckeyes have played the last 2 weeks to Wisconsin, if that's going to be enough to slow them down. So with that being said, one of my matchups, Jackson Smith and Jigba is feeling a little bit like an afterthought for a lot of people now. Like he was like this, he's this top 5 wide receiver. And one, I think that was always a little overboard. I think he put up crazy numbers in that offense, but he took advantage of what was there because of all the other weapons a little bit. But now I see people getting him as low as like wide receiver 4 or 5 in this class. I don't know how I feel about that yet. I know he's been hurt, but I think he's the guy to keep your eye on this game. I do believe he's going to be back last time I saw, but don't hold me to it yet. And then for Wisconsin, Jay Shaw, he is a transfer corner from UCLA. A lot of ball production there. Not the biggest guy, but he's very competitive at the catch point. He's been the Badgers' top cornerback. If he gets matched up, especially in the slot versus Jackson, Smith, and Jigba, that's a fun matchup that is going to change the game because Marvin Harrison Jr. is, 1, the best Buckeyes wide receiver. We're starting there. But 2, they have Julian Fleming. They have so many other options they can throw to. But it'll be nice for Shaw to see if he can come out and hold someone down, or on vice versa, if Smith and Jigba can get open here. So I think that's where I got my eyes watching, is the wide receivers versus Shaw specifically.
They've got so many good wide receivers on that team, and they've had so many good wide receivers for the past years. I guess you could say decades that they've had such good wide receivers on Ohio State. All right. Pick versus the spread. Ohio State's favored by 19.5 points. That's a lot of points. Again, in a conference game, that is a lot of points. I know I got done saying that I think that this game couldn't be close and Ohio State could really stride out. And I think that they could be really assert their dominance in this game. But to win by 20 is a lot in a Big Ten game. I don't be Maddie. You and I don't love Big Ten football. And
Ohio
I
State's not Big Ten football though. Like I will give
yeah,
Ohio State a pass. They're not Big Ten football.
Wisconsin very much is.
Oh yeah.
So I don't think that this will be a very high scoring game necessarily on the Wisconsin side of the ball. I'm going to take Wisconsin and the points of plus 19.5 just because big numbers scare me.
I'm with you. I think that this is I think it's a Wisconsin cover here. I'm looking back through the history. There's been some times in recently, 2014, Ohio State blows them out, and 2019, so 2 times ago they blew them out. But all the other games in between, even though Ohio State's clearly been the better team, sometimes won by a comfortable 10, 14 points, 17 points, 19.5 is a lot. And early in the year, teams rely on what they know. Wisconsin knows running the ball and playing defense. If you don't give up more than 35 points against, to Ohio State, I think you're going to cover 19.5. I think that's kind of the magic number. You don't give up more than 35, you're covering it. I will trust them in September to do so. You put it at the Big Ten championship game. If we see how they're playing, maybe not. But right now, I'll take the early season cover from Wisconsin.
Love to see it. Maddie and I on the same page as ever. Let's get to our wild card games. These are games that we'll have on the second TV. Ooh. Maddie and I both bringing a game to the table here. I'll start with my game. Arkansas versus Texas A&M. This is a neutral site game, in air quotes, neutral site, because it's in Jerry's World in Arlington, Texas. Very much in Texas A&M territory. But, Jerry Jones, big Arkansas guy. So a little bit there. Maybe there is a little bit of a neutral site. That game is at 6 p.m. Central Time. It'll also be on CBS. That's another SEC game. Good matchup. Texas A&M favored by 2 points. I think that's just an odd spread. It's part of the reason I picked this game, because neutral site, number one. Texas A&M hasn't played very well, number two. Arkansas almost lost to Missouri State. That was a weird game. Texas A&M took care of business against Miami, Florida last week, I believe. They flipped quarterbacks. They're kind of uncertain at quarterback. There's a lot going on. Texas A&M still taking the 2 points. Technically, I think they'll be the home team on the scoreboard too. So they'll be the home team, and they are really playing in their own territory. Texas A&M in the 2.5. This is going to be a close game. I might take Arkansas on the points here. That's what I'm gonna kind of settle with is Arkansas +2. I kind of talked myself into it as I was going there. I didn't think I was going to go there before I started talking, but Arkansas +2. Maddie, who are some of the guys that you're watching in this matchup?
Yeah, the big matchup I got here is Jaden Hazelwood, wide receiver from Arkansas, transferred in from, I believe it was Oklahoma a couple years ago, goes to Arkansas. He's their top target right now without Treylon Burks, and he's had some good moments, but that hasn't been a consistent passing attack for Arkansas, and they haven't exactly needed that. But he'll have a good matchup versus Antonio Johnson, Texas A&M corner / safety, big guy, 6'2", solid 205 pounds, but he plays in the nickel. He's their slot corner, and so some people kind of have him as this hybrid strong safety overhang defender as he transitions to the NFL. Some think he can play corner. I think it'll be team fit, but bigger receiver, bigger corner when they get matched up. That'll be a fun matchup to watch. And, just to see if KJ Jefferson has somebody open to throw the ball to in this game.
KJ Jefferson, the better quarterback in this matchup. That's how I'm
Easily
talking myself into this pick. As Sam Pittman, better coach. Some are saying.
Ooh.
Not better. I don't think he's better than Jimbo. I lied. All right, Maddie. What do you got for your wild card game?
USC versus Oregon State up in Oregon. This one, listen, Oregon State's a good football team. I think people are sleeping on Oregon State. Everybody's kind of stuck from a couple years ago where I think Oregon State was a little bit more spread out and they were a finesse team that just occasionally popped up and upset somebody. No, this is a physical football team that plays really good defense. They can run the ball. They do really nice things over the past couple seasons. They're 3-0 right now. The problem is people are still sleeping on USC. I don't know why. I don't know what else USC has to do. I know they haven't played the hardest schedule. I know that Stanford kind of fumbled away the ball a lot in the red zone that make that game not look close, but USC's offense looks unstoppable. So why aren't we talking a little bit more about that? Why is this game, the line for this game is only USC -5.5. That's low. And I think it even more strange for me It started, I think, at 7, and then Oregon State's best offensive player, Luke Musgrave, their tight end, like their starting tight end, he was a very, very good player. He'll get drafted in the NFL for sure, is out. He's not playing. Like their best offensive player isn't playing, and somehow the line has now dropped even more. A spoiler on the pick, I'm smashing USC minus only 5.5 versus this team. I just wonder how close it'll be. I think the thing to watch here for me, Jordan Addison, who's making a very strong case to be wide receiver 1. Taj Washington, another wide receiver, speedster out of Memphis. These are 2 good receivers, plus everyone else they have, versus Rajon Wright and Alex Austin, cornerbacks for Oregon State. Names you probably don't know right now, but Rajon Wright's brother got drafted by the Cowboys just a couple years ago in like round 3. It was a surprise pick. Rajon Wright's better. He was better at Oregon State when his brother entered the draft. He is better now. It'll be interesting to see if he can slow down Addison, slow down Washington, this USC passing attacks. Like, I like this game. I'm taking USC. It's like you don't have to officially pick this game, but do you have any thoughts on this one?
Both teams are 3-0 against the spread. Both
boy.
teams have been able to cover the spread. I think it's an easy hammer on USC though, because we talked about at the top of the show. They look like they could be pretty dangerous this year and years to come, especially with what they got there at coaching, at quarterback, at the skill position. They've got dudes, so I like your pick there.
Yeah, and I think Oregon State is being slept on. Like, I do think Oregon State's a good football team, just 5.5. Like, I think this game, if Oregon State plays well, this looks like a relatively ugly 7-9 point win for USC. But like, that's where I see if Oregon State can turn it ugly. If it goes the USC's way, I just don't think they can keep up. So it's just, I like Oregon State. I don't want to take anything away from them. I think this is a very interesting game to watch, but I don't know. USC's been flying right now, and now you get them playing in a primetime game for the Pac-12 at 9:30. It's like 6:30 their time. I don't know.
Yeah.
I think Link comes out and puts up points early on this one.
I like it. All right, Maddie, any final thoughts before we get the people out of here?
Listen, we've wasted your guys an hour of your guys' time this morning before football starts. So get ready. I think if I remember right for the day, the way the day plays out, you got a good Duke KU game to start, or if you're into Missouri, Auburn, you can. Clemson, Wake Forest. These are all games you should watch. I think we talked about them all. I think they're all worth watching. But if you can only carve out a little bit of time today, that nighttime slate is phenomenal. There's a lot of options at night. So your night and day just get better and better as the day goes along. Hopefully, Tuck and I got you a little bit of drama this week with our picks. We're not all on the same page, so hopefully that was enjoyable.
Absolutely. Make sure to tune into my Twitter account at Tucker D. Franklin. I'll post a good notes screenshot of what we did on our picks. I love a good notes app screenshot. Can't beat it, especially in the KCSNU side of things. Love a good notes screenshot. That's Matt Lane. You can follow him on Twitter at Matty_KCSN. Follow me on Twitter at Tucker D. Franklin. We'll be back next week, kicking you off for your next slate of games for next week. That'll be week 5 of the college football season.
God, it's getting late.
It is getting late in the season. It's almost the witching hour when it comes to college football with these teams. So thank you all for listening. Make sure to like and subscribe to the KCSNU YouTube channel. Appreciate you all sticking with us all the way to the end, and we will catch you next week.